All right, welcome to Hoops Tonight here at The Volume. Happy Wednesday, everybody. Hope all of you guys are having a great week. Got a jam-packed show for you today. We're hitting two games from last night as the Dallas Mavericks continue their dominance over the Minnesota Timberwolves. We're going to be breaking that game down from the perspective of both teams. And then the Golden State Warriors, without Steph Curry, without Andrew Wiggins, without DeAnthony Melton, get a big dominant win over the New Orleans Pelicans despite Brandon Ingram and Zion Williamson going off. We're going to break that game down from the perspective of both teams. And then I have 23 clips for an episode of Timpf's tape at the tail end of the show. It's actually a couple of days worth because we didn't do one yesterday. So I've got some clips from the Celtics and some other games that we talked about earlier this week in there as well. A bunch of stuff to get into in the film session. You guys know the drill. Before we get started, subscribe to the Hoops Tonight YouTube channel so you don't miss any more of our videos. Follow me on Twitter at _JasonLT so you guys don't miss show announcements. Don't forget about our podcast feed, wherever you get your podcasts under Hoops Tonight. And to keep dropping mailbag questions in those YouTube comments so we can keep hitting them throughout the remainder of the season. And then last but not least, before we get started, I want to talk to you guys about Game Time. Now is the best time of the year to go out and see an event. Obviously, the NFL is in full swing. College football is in full swing. The NBA is in full swing. The NHL is in full swing. We've got concerts. We've got comedy shows. There's so many different events for you guys to get out and go see. And there is no better ticket buying experience out there than Game Time. I've personally used them many times and had the best experience I've ever had with the ticket buying app with them. I highly recommend it. I want you guys to check it out. They have this brand new kind of feature called Game Time Picks. You know, when you click on an event and there's just thousands of tickets and there's so much crap for you to sort through, Game Time Picks actually just curates the best deals at that particular event so that you can be more efficient with your time as you're looking for tickets. They have all-in pricing, so you know exactly what you're paying when you go to check out. You get a picture of your seat within the app so you know what you're getting with your money, and it's very easy. It's not a convoluted process. You can check out in as few as 2 taps. Highly recommend you guys check it out. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code HOOPS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code HOOPS. That's HOOPS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. All right, guys, let's talk some basketball. So Mavs-Wolves, really interesting flow in this game. Ant comes out. He's just shooting the shit out of the basketball to start this year. Comes out hotter than blazes to start the game. He's hitting all sorts of threes off the catch and off the dribble, a couple of ridiculous drives to the rim. He has this like dribble combination on Klay Thompson on the first possession of the game where he toasts him off the dribble and then Euro steps around Gafford and reverses it in on the opposite side of the basket. Just completely ridiculous. He has 24 points in the first quarter, and the Wolves ride that to an early 10-point lead. Then in the mid-second quarter, Luka has his best stretch of the game. He had a rough game from the box score standpoint, but he had a couple of separate, really dominant stretches that controlled the game. I still thought he played really well. Classic example of how reading the box score is just not a way to evaluate basketball players. But in the mid-second quarter, Luka has his best stretch of the game. It's kind of interesting. The Mavs have been running a lot of different, more advanced offensive stuff this season than they did in years past, for good reason, because they have so much more offensive skill on this particular roster. But in this particular game, they kind of leaned back on a lot of the same stuff that they did in the playoffs last year, which, for the record, made sense for this particular matchup. Like their brute force high ball screen attack, the Wolves had almost no answers for in that Western Conference Final series. And in that second quarter, they just kind of started spamming that. And like every time he got downhill, he'd kind of get into that mid-range to make shots off the dribble. If he forced a switch that he'd like, he'd just try to beat that guy off the dribble and then throw a lob. If the big man stepped up, he was just absolutely cooking him. The Mavs kind of chip away at the lead, and they end up actually going into halftime with a 2-point lead. Then in the third quarter, Kyrie Irving gets insanely hot. He hits 4 threes. Quentin Grimes added a couple threes of his own. The Mavs did a lot of damage in transition in this run as well. Throughout the whole game, Dallas kept beating Minnesota up the floor on leakouts, sometimes on made baskets too. Really bad transition defense. One of the consistent themes of this game was both Daniel Gafford and Derek Lively just kicking Gobert's ass in every single phase of the game. A couple of guys who combined to make about half what Rudy Gobert makes, and they were just kicking his ass, and specifically just outrunning him down the floor. There were plays I trimmed one and put it on my Twitter feed for you guys to see. And I've got a bunch of clips from this game in the film session at the tail end of the game. If you're looking for visual representations of the things I'm talking about today, make sure you stick around for the Timpf's tape segment at the tail end. But there were just plays where like Gafford just shot would go up, and as soon as the defensive rebound was secured, he just literally would just sprint up the floor, just beat Gobert up the floor. And the forwards and guards for Minnesota were not helping to track on that back line when Gobert would get beat. And they were just getting easy ones in transition. The Mavs really take over the game in this stretch, and they end up going up by as much as 13. Then the Wolves actually go to more spacing looks in the fourth quarter. They try a Ant, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Jaden McDaniels, Julius Randle, Naz Reid look, and then they try a centerless look with no Gobert or Naz Reid, with Dante DiVincenzo in for Naz Reid. So essentially, Dante and Nickeil Alexander-Walker, 2 3-and-D guards, and Nikhil's been shooting the ball really, really well to start the year. Ant as another guard, and then Jaden McDaniels and Julius Randle. So much better spacing. They start getting lots of dribble penetration. They're faster in rotation and in transition. They kind of get themselves back into the game, and they actually cut it back to 2 with a couple of minutes left. And then in crunch time, when the Wolves got it back to 2, we get a really interesting sequence where the Mavs start just outworking the Wolves. So first, the Mavs get an offensive rebound, a long rebound that comes off right around the foul line area, where PJ Washington just out-hustles Jaden McDaniels. Again, like, big possession down to Jaden's a good athlete. Jaden has every ability to get that rebound. PJ just beats him to it, ends up tapping at it. Then there's another 50-50 ball with both Gobert and Lively kind of staring at it, and Lively beats Gobert to it. And so, couple of extra efforts for Mavs outworking Wolves, extra possession. Ball ends up in Kyrie Irving's hands at the top of the key. He mixes up Julius Randle and hits a pull-up 3. All of a sudden, it's a 5-point game. Secure a defensive rebound there, and you have a chance to tie or take the lead. Now you're down 2 possessions. So big sequence there for the Mavs. Then the Wolves go down and score. They cut it to 3. Then Kyrie gets Julius Randle on a switch again, and the Wolves don't want to allow that to happen, so they double-team Kyrie. Gets swung over to the left corner, and Luka Doncic gets Gobert closing out at him. Luka beats him off the dribble. Kind of an interesting theme at the end of this game. Like the Gobert, the lineups without Gobert early in the quarter were performing really well, right? But Chris Finch makes an interesting decision to go back to Gobert in crunch time, even though the small ball lineups were what was working. And then Gobert ended up making a bunch of mistakes down the tail end of this game. But Gobert throws a bad closeout at Luka. Luka easily toasts him off the dribble and scoops in a little layup that puts him back up 5. Then the Mavs go down and get a stop. They got an opportunity to end the game. They get the Wolves get another stop, another chance to secure a defensive rebound. And once again, both PJ Washington and Derek Lively in reverse order this time. This time, Derek Lively beats Gobert to it and taps at it. And then PJ Washington comes flying in and gets the rebound. Another extra possession for Dallas. Luka burns them by hitting just this ridiculous 35-footer that ices the game and puts the Mavs up by 8. So once again, that second run from Luka, the driving closeout on Gobert, and then the dagger 3 at the top of the key that kind of iced the game. But what I thought was really fascinating there is Lively and PJ Washington in particular really giving the Mavs extra possessions and extra chances to go for that knockout blow just by outworking guys like Jaden McDaniels and Rudy Gobert. Again, that's part of the basketball character of this team and a big part of why they win. It's not just Kyrie and Luka. It's athletes that do the dirty work and do it well and consistently kick ass against the other dirty work players on the other teams. We're going to talk about Lively a little bit later, but Lively was just an absolute monster in every phase of the game in this particular one. But good win for the Mavs. They clearly have the Wolves number. Like, they held Luka down in the box score, but Luka, I still thought, got whatever he wanted, really, and really picked him apart in the half court for extended stretches and then killed them in crunch time. He's just too big for all their perimeter guys. Like, they had some deflections and forced him into some misses. It also looked like he kind of hurt his knee again at one point in this game. Kyrie eviscerates them every single time they play. Then on defense, they just load up on Anthony Edwards because they aren't worried about Rudy Gobert. Like, yeah, he got into the paint a little bit with those small ball looks, but every time Gobert's on the floor against Dallas, they're able to basically turn Ant into a jump shooter. And when Ant's hitting his jump shots, obviously, like in the first half, it looks good. But like when Ant starts missing or when they start to pressure him a little bit more, there's just so much traffic in the paint that they can't really get quality looks. Gobert was just so bad in this game. Lively and Gafford always kick his ass. He missed a bunch of shots on cuts and rolls around the rim. Just getting beat on the glass, getting beat in transition. It just wasn't pretty for Rudy Gobert in this game. And then to top it all off, they're just playing harder. Like, so when your stars have significant advantages, when you have a defensive game plan that works against the opposing star, and you're just outworking them, that's going to lead to a lot of losses in an individual matchup for a team like Minnesota and this type of dynamic. There's also like a clear psychological element. You could just tell, like, it doesn't even look like Minnesota really believes they can beat Dallas right now. It kind of reminds me of like the last few years with the Lakers and the Nuggets, where it just kind of felt like even when the Lakers were in games and had chances, it just always felt like Denver was going to come back and beat them because of that psychological advantage, right? So it is what it is. Minnesota's going to have to figure that out at some point if they want to get out of this conference. But the Dallas Mavericks are up to 3-1. They are 13th in offense, 10th in defense. The offense will continue to get better in time. Luka is still getting into shape after that injury to start camp. Like, he's below 50% true shooting right now, and his scoring is way down from last year. That's obviously going to get way better as he gets his legs underneath him. They're also running several new concepts that will take time, and I'm personally loving it. Like, again, in this game, even though they ran a lot more of their offense from last year for this particular matchup, they still had some sequences where they went to Derek Lively at the top of the key, holding the basketball for off-ball action. You got another wide open layup for Kyrie on one of those like Spurs cuts where he kind of cuts off Lively's shoulder, and Lively like pivots into the defender as he throws the lob or the little over the top pass to Kyrie for the layup. There was another really cool one. We had another crazy Luka Doncic behind the back pass to a 3-point shooter, and there was a very specific action they ran to get to that. Once again, Lively, top of the key, passing fulcrum. Luka fighting for position at the elbow, gets the defender caught on his high side. Derek Lively throws a beautiful over-the-top pass that leads Luka towards the basket, which engaged the defender out of that corner, which is how Luka threw that behind-the-head pass that ended up hitting the shooter wide open in the corner. Once again, Luka generating a wide-open three without even having to dribble the basketball. That's the type of advantage that you have. That's the type of ceiling raising that operating with more offensive variety can do for you. Like, I talk about it all the time, but ball pressure can really wear players down. When you have the ability to score off the ball or to run action off the ball, it avoids any ball pressure. There's no ball pressure when you don't have to dribble. And that is one of the ways that Dallas is adding variety to their offense. And by the way, I put both of those plays in the Timpf tape segment, so you guys will see visual representations of it. But again, they went to a lot of their 4-out stuff, a lot of their brute force high pick and roll stuff in this game, just because it works so well against Minnesota, and that makes sense to me. But this is the thing. I said this in the season preview. I don't want Dallas to ditch that stuff entirely. They got to the finals doing that stuff. That's an important punch for them to have. I just want them to have more punches, more variety, so that when they run into something that doesn't work, they can audible and have another way to attack offensively. And I really, really like how they're starting to build all of this out over the course of the season. There's a really high offensive ceiling for this group that is available there in the long run. By the way, another example of why Klay Thompson didn't get as many opportunities on offense in this game is because they went back to that kind of 4-out style. And as I talked about, he's not going to get open very often when he's just standing. He's going to get open often in chaos, whether that's transition or with lots of ball and player movement in the half court. And so again, they're going to do plenty of that over the course of the season. I've seen tons of it already this year. There's going to be opportunities where it makes sense for them to kind of go play more brute force and have Klay just spot up. And then there's going to be times where it makes more sense for them to do more ball and player movement to try to keep everybody involved. And that, to me, is the variety that they need. Last two shout-outs, Derek Lively and PJ Washington. PJ Washington was a monster on the glass in this game. He had 4 offensive rebounds. All of them were huge. He also poured in 17 points. That was a season high for him. Looked really confident shooting the ball from 3. Lively was just an absolute monster on defense in this game, just shutting everything down at the rim, forcing Gobert into a lot of like fumbles and misses at the rim. He defended really well on switches. He locked up both Ant and Julius Randle at different points in the game and just straight switches and isolation situations. He's generating offense as a passer like we broke down earlier. He's just going to be so fucking good in the long run. I'm super, super excited for Mavs fans. Derek Lively is a franchise-changing talent that they have in there with Luka. On the Wolves front, there are issues with Dallas. Like, Gobert just has to be better. Got his ass kicked by a couple of guys who combined to make half of what he does. That can't happen. He can't be getting outrun up the floor. He can't be getting beat to offensive rebounds. Like, that was ugly. He can't get outworked. That's something that can't happen, especially for a player whose entire income is based on dirty work and the ability to compete in those environments. Gobert lineups in general have been really bad this year. We'll get more into detail on that in a little bit, but that's been part of the problem. And then with Dallas too, when they have bad offensive possessions, Dallas consistently burns them in transition. It's kind of like an interesting dynamic, because when the Wolves play better offensively, that's when they have good stretches against Dallas. But it's always when their offense falls apart that Dallas starts getting going in transition. They start getting easy stuff. Luka starts to kind of psychologically take over the game at that point. Definitely an execution issue in this particular matchup as well. Lots of stuff, though, to get into that's kind of exciting. Ant's shooting. We're 65 jump shots into the season. He's at 1.17 points per jump shot. Again, I one of my big beliefs is that this shooting stretch from Anthony Edwards is real, and this is super exciting. Now, there's a little bit of a debate to have, right? So he's taking 13 three-point attempts per game, and there's a lot of people talking about, like, do we want Ant taking this many threes? Is this him settling too much? And here's the thing. To me, it all comes down to whether or not he can make them at this clip. Right now, he's making 42% of them. That's 1.25 points per attempt. That's a 125 offensive rating. That is an excellent shot for this team right now. One of the best shots that Minnesota can get right now is anything that Anthony Edwards takes at the three-point line. So, like, here's the deal. In an ideal universe, do you want a little bit more balance? But my thing, too, is, like, that's easier on his legs. It's easier on wear and tear. And also, this is a team that really struggles with a packed paint. There's not really many opportunities to drive. When things spread out, when they went to those small ball looks, which we're going to talk about in a minute, all of a sudden, Ant started getting downhill again. And so my thing is, like, it's almost like a variety, like we talked about. It would be nice if on the Gobert groups, Ant could rely on his jump shot more because of the issues that he has in the paint with that lineup. And then when they go to their small ball groups and he's on the floor with more spacing, that's when he can look to drive and be more aggressive. But here's the thing. Ant is a scoring guard. He's not a guy that's going to have 12 assists per game or pick you apart with surgical passing. That's not his game. He is a scoring guard. And so this is a guy that you need averaging 30, 32 points a game in order to reach his individual ceiling, kind of like Michael Jordan did, kind of like Kobe Bryant did, right? Like, that's his archetype. And so in order for him to get to that type of scoring volume, it can't all just be driving to the basket all damn day long like he's Dwayne Wade. There's got to be a balance to it. And so a dominant, aggressive jump shot combined with that downhill ability is what will allow him to be that consistent high volume scorer that Minnesota needs him to be in the long run. So to make a long story short, like, as long as he's making 40% of them or more, I'm cool with Ant taking 13 threes a game. But yeah, if we get 2 months into this thing and he's still taking 13 threes a game and he's only shooting 36.5%, then there's a different conversation to have about maybe wanting to tick that down from 13 attempts to something lower so that he can get some more efficient looks. But as long as he's hitting them like this, it's a very efficient shot that's easy on his legs and gives him a way to attack when the paint is really, really packed. So, like, it all just depends on how real of a jump shooter Anthony Edwards is, and we're going to find out as we get further in. Small ball looks. This season, with Rudy Gobert on the floor, the Wolves are getting outscored by 3 points per 100 possessions. They are negative. With Rudy Gobert off the floor, they are outscoring teams by 8 points per 100 possessions, so they are 8 points positive. So an 11-point swing to the positive when they go to groups without Rudy Gobert on the floor. Reason why is very simple. You've got two guys in Julius Randle and Anthony Edwards that have huge physical advantages going downhill towards the rim. There's much more space. The offense in particular is so much better. They're 26 points better per 100 possessions on offense with Rudy Gobert off the floor versus on the floor. This is where I'd like to just see them cut his minutes a little bit. Gobert's playing in 35 minutes a game right now. I'd cut that down a bit into that like 28 to 30 minute range. Last night, for instance, the small ball groups got them back in the game. Then Rudy Gobert checks back in and they can't go bucket for bucket with Dallas late. And you check Rudy in to help you with the dirty work, and he promptly gives up 2 offensive rebounds and throws a bad closeout at Luka Doncic that gives up a bucket. So you put him out there to get the benefit of Gobert, and you did not get the benefit of Gobert while also getting the downsides that come with him on the offensive end of the floor. I think cutting him down to 28, 30 minutes a game, leaning more on your small ball looks like, we talk about this a lot, but like at end of game situations, the ability to contain the ball on the perimeter is something that is super valuable. That Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Dante DiVincenzo, Jaden McDaniels, Ant, and Julius Randle look could be a really interesting switching look where they contain the ball and just rely on their perimeter defense at the end of these games and try to outscore teams in the half court with better spacing. So again, we'll see how it looks in the long run, but it's just a lot of Rudy Gobert right now, and he's just not playing particularly well. I just want to see a little bit more exploration of those small ball looks. Does your favorite NBA player have what it takes to be crowned king of the court? Find out at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. DraftKings is offering $1 million a day in bonus bets for the first 10 days of the NBA season. That's $10 million in bonus bets. Here's how you shoot your shot. Opt in and get a daily NBA profit boost token. Pick a pregame NBA player prop to boost, and if that player leads the league that night in points plus rebounds plus assists, you win a share of the $1 million in bonus bets. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code HOOPS. That's HOOPS. That's code HOOPS to win a share of $1 million in bonus bets if your player is king of the court. Only on DraftKings, the crown is yours. All right, let's move on to Pelicans-Warriors. Another game that had a really interesting back and forth flow. The Pelicans take a 20-point lead early in this game. Just an obvious gap in firepower to start the game. The Warriors guards that were being aggressive early, so like Buddy Hield in the early part of the game, he just was missing shots. But then really Brandon Podziemski and Jonathan Kuminga in the tail end of the first quarter were really playing a lot of one-on-one. And if you're going to get into like a singular firepower contest with the Pelicans, when you have Andrew Wiggins and Steph Curry in street clothes, you're going to lose that battle. And they did early. Like Brandon Ingram and Zion Williamson and CJ McCollum had 24 points in the first quarter. As a team, the Warriors only had 14. They were just really getting cooked on one end of the floor and just not generating quality shots on the other end. They were down by 20 in the early part of the second quarter. Now, then the Warriors started to play Warriors basketball, and they kind of chewed down that lead in that second quarter with much better defensive activity and much better ball movement. Again, what is the Warriors' identity beyond Steph Curry, right? Like the identity of the Warriors is Steph, Draymond, and Steve Kerr and everything that they've established over the course of the last 10 years. But beyond Steph Curry, they have a strong identity, which is speed. They are fast as hell on offense and on defense. On offense through player movement and quick decision-making, and on defense with ball pressure and covering ground really, really fast in rotation. They fly around, and they have a depth of guys that can do it, so that even with Andrew Wiggins, who when he's healthy and in when his mind is right, is one of the very best perimeter defenders in the game, and DeAnthony Melton, who's a very good starting caliber defensive guard, when those guys are out of the lineup, they still have waves of guys come in. Here comes Lindy Waters. Guess what? He's really good. Here comes a bigger Moses Moody. Like Moses Moody starts the game. Well, guess what? He's really good too. There's all these different guys that can do this job on this roster. In that second quarter, they started flying around on both ends and got back into the game. The Warriors forced 9 turnovers in that quarter. They scored 24 points just in transition, just in the second quarter. Like, it was a crazy run that they went on to get back in the game. Then going into the second half, Steve Kerr makes a really interesting call. So, like, one of the things that happened in the first quarter is Buddy Hield was missing, and Lindy Waters comes in and kind of has a really good shift. Like, he's aggressive shooting the ball. His first bucket, like just cutting, moving without the basketball. He cuts out of a split cut on a post up and gets a wide open layup. He just looked like more aggressive and he looked comfortable. So Steve Kerr makes this decision. He benches Buddy Hield to start the second half and starts Lindy Waters, and it worked out literally perfectly. Lindy goes on another scoring run just to start the third quarter. Brandon Podziemski, by the way, finally had a breakout offensive stretch there in that early third quarter. He scores 10 quick points. Jonathan Kuminga comes in the late third, has a really nice run. He had a driving left-handed layup by Herb Jones. He had a pull-up 3 in a ball screen, I think, with Kevon Looney, if I remember correctly. And then he has this crazy sequence where he gets a block at the rim, secures the rebound, runs the length of the floor, and throws a beautiful lob to Trace Jackson-Davis at the rim. So he goes on this individual run. And then Buddy Hield, the guy that Steve Kerr benched to start the second half, he comes in and finally starts just hitting shots, and he gets crazy hot, and then they put the game away. And then on the defensive end of the floor, it was kind of like an interesting bend but don't break approach from Steve Kerr, and it worked really well. Like, they let Brandon Ingram and Zion Williamson just cook one-on-one most of the game, and they cooked. They had 61 points. Zion Williamson just absolutely torched both Draymond Green and Kevon Looney. Brandon Ingram was just shooting over the top of every single Warriors guard. Like, those guys got their buckets, but it didn't matter because Almost half of the Pels buckets were unassisted, so there was very little ball movement. They had just 75 points total after the first quarter. They forced them into 25 turnovers. That led to 34 points in the game. Really, really good two-way performance from the Warriors as they get a dominant, impressive win over a playoff team without their best player and without two of their most important role players that they have on this roster. Just a resounding statement of the depth that this team has. And that really has been the story of this Warriors season in the early going, in my opinion. Like, they just won a game without Steph Curry, DeAnthony Melton, and Andrew Wiggins because they're so damn deep with fast guys that can both defend and run action properly in the Warriors system. That is what has their floor so high. They have a strong identity that is separate from Steph Curry. They're an elite defense that forces a lot of turnovers, scores a lot in transition off of those misses and those turnovers. Just a couple of stats to demonstrate how good the Warriors have been with their speed to start this season. Second in defensive rating, sixth in pace. They have forced 21 turnovers per game. That's second only to the Oklahoma City Thunder. They're scoring 26 points per game off of turnovers. That's the most in the entire NBA. They're scoring 22 fast break points per game. That's first in the entire NBA. They're getting out in transition on 22% of their overall possessions. That's number one in the NBA. So speed is the identity of this team. That is where they are driving success that is separate from Steph Curry. And again, like Steph, even when he was in the lineup to start the year, he hadn't even had a game where he scores more than 20 points yet. If Steph actually manages to rejoin this system and to reach a level closer to what he was at 2 years ago, and they hit on a trade, you bet your ass this is a team that can make some noise. That they are much better than I expected them to be this season, and they're showing it here in the first few games. And again, the depth is the important piece. You just saw, if you have the ability to drop two role players in a trade, or maybe even three role players in a trade, but you bring in a high-level firepower piece, they have the depth to still have quality role players around them, which is such a luxury. On the Pelicans front, turnovers really killed them in this one. When they were patient, they consistently got great stuff from Zion and BI. BI's had a couple of rough games, but he's also had a couple of really, really good games. And one of the rough games, he ended up hitting the game winner in anyway. Just really, really comfortable getting into that mid-range. Also, without DeJounte Murray getting a lot more high ball screen touches, and he's just one of the more gifted forwards at passing at a high ball screens that we have in the league. But turnovers killed him in this one. They gave up 34 points off of turnovers in this game. Zion finally had his big breakout game on offense. He was really rough in his first two games. Both Draymond Green and Kevon Looney were hopeless against him. It was interesting how he attacked both guys too. Like with Looney, it was aggression in a straight line, just go to the rim and get a bucket. And he was getting a bunch of buckets like that. Draymond, obviously a much more gifted defender, was doing a good job of beating Zion to the first spot. And so this is something we talked about in preseason, but Zion has worked on this little hard drive to the right for a left-handed player so that he could pound into a spin over his right shoulder for a left-handed hook shot. And he got Draymond with that a bunch of times in this game where he make an aggressive move. Draymond, good defense, slide his feet, take the contact. But Zion's just so quick with that spin over his right shoulder. He also has done it a few times where he gets caught dead to rights, he gets caught dead to rights, and all he'll do is just quick pivot towards the baseline to fake like he's going to go reverse, and then he'll just turn right back over his right shoulder and go to that hook. That left-handed hook is going to be such an important go-to move for him in the long run. But again, he had such a dominant performance against the Lakers in the play-in game, and we were wondering if he was going to be able to continue some momentum off of that. Comes into the season, gets sick, misses the first game, doesn't look good in the first two games. What we saw last night was closer to the Zion that we expect. Now, really rough on defense in this one, especially in the second half. But the Warriors offense is a blender. They really test your attentiveness and your ability to navigate screens and to defend multiple actions, to make multiple efforts on the same possession and to cover ground. And again, that attentiveness is everything that they're testing. And so that's just a weakness of Zion that he's going to have to work on. But I did think it was an encouraging offensive performance for Zion. They're 2-2 right now. They beat Chicago on opening night. They beat the Blazers on that crazy game in Portland where Brandon Ingram hits the game winner over Anthony Simons, and then Zion has that crazy help side defense block. But then they got blown out by the Blazers, and then they got blown out by the Warriors without Wiggins and Steph. They're 22nd in offense through 4 games, 18th in defense. Hard to read too much into these results, though, because like the DeJounte Murray trade, and I really like DeJounte Murray. When he's healthy, he's going to help this team. But with him being out with the injury, I think he's going to be out for the better part of 6 weeks. That really sapped them of depth, right? Like Dyson Daniels is a really good player, specifically of a very valuable archetype, which is that defensive guard that can pressure the ball, fly around in rotation. He's off to a good start in Atlanta. Larry Nance is better than any center you have on the roster right now. Like Yves Missi had a couple nice plays today. He met Jonathan Kuminga at the rim, had a really nice block, had a good offensive rebound putback. Like he's got some potential, but he's got a long way to go. And Daniel Tice is a stretch five that doesn't really hit threes the way that stretch fives usually do. So like, I think they're going to hover around 500 or maybe even a little below 500 until DeJounte Murray gets back, because they're just not as deep, not very good defensively on that front line. And they need to be so good on the perimeter to make up for that. And they're not going to be until they get DeJounte Murray. I think it's Jordan Hawkins was the last guy I wanted to talk about. He's shooting the ball really, really well this year, but obviously Golden State really pressures the ball and contests really well. He had trouble breaking open against Golden State. That's a good example. Like Jordan Hawkins, good player, brings some of that movement shooting, has been helping with the Trey Murphy absence. But the reality is like he's got a certain athletic limitation that he's going to run into when he runs into teams like this. That's where it's like, man, if DeJounte Murray's in this lineup, he can kind of help hang in these super athletic environments, slots everybody better. Now your best guard is guarding DeJounte Murray instead of CJ McCollum. Now maybe CJ McCollum has a better night. You know, like there's just a lot that can go wrong when you make a depth trade. Like you trade depth for a star and then that star gets hurt. It just is going to cause a lot of problems for you. All right, let's get into our film session for today. We're actually starting in Boston from the Bucks game. This was stuff that I covered in yesterday's show, but I wanted to I just like basically drop all these clips in a folder, and I just didn't have a chance to do Tim's tape yesterday, so I just bumped it into today. So first of all, this is an example these are examples of all of the mistakes that Milwaukee made when they lost control of the game against Boston. So as you can see, 82-80, minute 39 left. This is a game that is there for the taking. Bobby Portis misses a little right shoulder fade. We go the other end. And I talked yesterday about the interchange that takes place on a switch. So here's Derek White. We have Xavier Tillman going to set the screen. Giannis is on Derek White. Bobby Portis is in the switch. I talk all the time about the difference between an aggressive switch and a switch. On an aggressive switch, screen comes, Portis would run out and meet Derek White out here. Specifically so that Derek White doesn't have that interchange to take advantage of where he can take a look at a three-point shot. Instead, Bobby Portis sits back on his heels. So when the switch happens, again, Tillman's rolling. Giannis is going to go with him. Bobby's sitting back on his heels behind the three-point line. Derek White's like, please and thank you. I'll just go ahead and rise up into this three over the top. He had just hit one over here, too, on an offensive rebound. The Bucks were actually up 80-79. So, like, Derek White's just hit a three. That can't be the possession where you're lazy on a switch and you concede an easy pull-up jump shot off the dribble. This was one of the wildest defensive plays I've ever seen from a guard. How about Derek White single-handedly stopping a Dame Giannis ball screen? So here comes our Dame Giannis ball screen. Dame gets downhill. Derek White stonewalls the drive. We have a pitch back to Giannis. Look at Derek White. Meets Giannis up top and blocks him. That was an unbelievable defensive play from Derek White. Here's that corner crash that I talked about yesterday. So Jordan Walsh again. So we're loading up on the strong side for a Tatum post up. Watch Giannis and Bobby Portis. They are completely keyed in and help, and no one's paying attention to Jordan Walsh. Tatum draws that double team. Derek White ends up taking his third three. Watch Jordan Walsh, though. Bobby Portis and Giannis both key on Xavier Tillman. Jordan Walsh, game plan discipline. Again, corner crashing is a huge part in the modern NBA of winning on the margins. Jordan Walsh just comes flying in, gets the offensive rebound, put back. Big time play. A lot of hustle plays going Boston's direction at the tail end of this one. Here's another loose ball. So Derek, kick out to Jordan Walsh. Derek White, loose ball. Okay, so here you go. On the loose ball, who's got the position? Gary Trent Jr. is closer to the ball, and he's a better athlete who's bigger than Peyton Pritchard. But he's flat-footed, and Peyton's being active. Peyton beats all of them to the basketball. Look at that. Once again, just getting outworked, and you're the team that is at the talent disadvantage that needs to play harder. This was that crazy Peyton Pritchard prayer to end the third quarter that went in. Just it really has developed a reputation as being one of the best end of quarter players in the league. This was where it all went south. This was basically the dagger. So a blitz of Jaylen Brown, up on the right wing. So Portis is on Cornette. We're getting that Finland action, right? So Jaylen Brown's going to back screen for Pritchard before he comes off the DHO. But actually, it was just more of a ball screen than a DHO. But essentially, as this ball screen happens, Portis is going to trap. But once you trap here, the most important thing for you to do is to contain the ball and then to pressure the ball so that the pass that comes out of this, whether it's a skip pass or it's something to Cornette, is deflected or lobbed so that you can rotate out of it. The worst thing you can do is not even contain the ball. And Jaylen Brown just splits Bobby Portis. Just a really bad blitz. Now you're just completely fucked. It's a 5-on-3. Pritchard ends up wide open in the right corner, and that ends up being the dagger. So again, you're up by 1 with roughly 2 minutes left in the third quarter, and you get out-hustled and out-executed on both ends of the floor, and you end up all of a sudden down 13 in a matter of like 3 minutes. And that really is the thing. Is like Giannis and the Bucks, they're hanging on for dear life. We're hanging with the Boston Celtics. We can do this, guys. And then it's like they let go. And it's because unless you make a habit, I mean, habit is the key word, meaning like it is almost instinctual through just relentless work and attention to detail over a large sample size, it becomes a habit for you to do the right thing. Versus when you play lazy and then all of a sudden in a big game, you have to be sharp. You can be sharp for a spurt. You can be sharp for a quarter, sharp for 2 quarters, maybe even 3 quarters. But eventually you're going to like kind of just go back to what you are at your core of your being, which is an unserious basketball team like the Milwaukee Bucks, and they end up dropping this game. All right, into Orlando. This was the ghost screen action that we all knew was going to happen a lot this year for Paolo and Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. So KCP is going to run through. He's going to set the ghost screen for Paolo. Draw 2 to the ball. See? And again, what causes the ghost screen to function is we're taking advantage of the hedge. So Tyrese Halliburton is, in this case, going to hedge. Why? Because KCP is going to set a screen. So if Halliburton doesn't hedge and Nesmith gets screened, if Halliburton stays glued to the bottom side of KCP, Paolo Banchero is going to get... Oh, I went too far forward. Sorry, guys. If that screen gets set and Halliburton does not hedge, Paolo's going to get downhill this way, and now you're in real trouble. So Halliburton has to hedge out. Here's our hedge. So Halliburton runs out there for the specific purpose of stopping Paolo from turning the corner. But then he's got to recover to KCP. He's slow. KCP is a good movement shooter who can knock the shot down, so they have to rotate from the weak side. Andrew Nembhard rotates over. Obi Toppin's going to rotate over. Ends up generating a wide open 3 for Anthony Black in the right corner. And shout out to Anthony Black. He misses this one, but keeps his confidence because he actually does make that one. I apologize. But he ends up hitting another huge 3. He misses another corner 3 later on in the fourth quarter, but then he ends up hitting the game winner in the left corner. So corner 3-point shooting for Anthony Black was a big one in this particular game. Another KCP ghost screen, same kind of concept. Oh, wait, nope. We got the KCP ghost screen is on the next possession. So this was that play that I talked about in the game breakdown yesterday where randomly, fourth quarter, Magic down 5 minutes left. This is basically a crunch time possession, even though it won't log as a crunch time possession for another 5 seconds. But Wendell Carter Jr., Anthony Black, cleared side ball screen. How about the second-year player getting an opportunity to run some action? Engages the screen defender, makes the pocket pass, gets Wendell Carter a good roll, and Wendell Carter draws a foul. Really nice play from Anthony Black. Here's the KCP go screen. I apologize for the confusion earlier. All right, so we have Paolo. KCP cuts through, go screen, hedge, slip, right? That draws the wide open three for Jalen Suggs. Now, as you can see, Pascal Siakam is actually keyed in on Suggs, but this is a bad hedge from Halliburton because he doesn't actually cut him off. The entire purpose of the hedge for Halliburton is to stop the drive. Now you've done the worst of both worlds. You've left your defender wide open and you haven't contained the ball. Paolo easily gets downhill. That forces Pascal to step over and help. Paolo's got two options here. He can go to Anthony Black in the right corner or Jalen Suggs in the left corner. He ends up going to Suggs. He knocks down the shot. All right, that's the one he misses. Okay. This is the problem with me clipping a bunch of clips yesterday than to hit on today's show. There's going to be a little bit of a mental gap there. I apologize, guys. All right, now we're moving on to Dallas and Minnesota. These are plays from today. This was a cool little Chicago action that the Timberwolves ran that got Julius Randle wide open three. I love when teams run three-man action that keep both of their stars involved. It just makes them so much harder to guard. As you can see, it kind of gets downhill and draws PJ Washington and help. That's Julius's defender. The kickback gets Julius Randle a wide open three. Love how much more often the Mavericks have been running Luka off of off-ball action instead of just having him bring the ball up the floor and deal with ball pressure. Again, Jaden McDaniels, when he gets down here, has no chance against Luka, but in the open court, he can wear him down with speed and just poking at the basketball. So just ease that up on him, run him off this off-ball action. Functions just like a ball screen, right? Now Jaden is in trail position. Gafford can roll. It's the same function as a ball screen. Obviously, Mike Conley's not going to stay away from Klay Thompson, so he's only stunting. He stays home, catches Jaden McDaniels crawling up his back, gets a little floater in the and one. I talked to you guys about how I thought Spencer Dinwiddie with the Lakers was actually a really, really good defender of guards. I thought this was a good lock and trail possession. Again, gets a little bit of distance, but look at the closing speed and the length to bother the shot. Watch the length. He's got super long arms. Great contest. And look at the drift. Look at the drift from Dante. He forces him to change his shot and drift and lean to his left with a really good pursuit from behind. Forces a miss. Back to the left and a missed short and left. Probably not a coincidence. Julius Randle drawing help from the post. Really nice shot creation example. We're in a spaced out look. This is another one of those small ball looks where there's no non-shooter on the floor. Julius goes to work against Derek, picks up his dribble, but catches Klay Thompson. This is rim pressure, right? Like, even though they're not double teaming, it's instinctual for defenders when they see a guy get into the paint to kind of suck into the paint. Julius does a really nice kick out pass to Dante DiVincenzo and knocks down the three. Here's those two plays that I talked about where Lively's operating as the passing fulcrum at the top of the key for off-ball action. They've been doing a lot of this with bench groups with Luka off the floor. So again, fake dribble handoff to Hardy that flows into the wide screen for Kyrie, who then cuts off Lively. But this allows Lively to basically set another screen for Kyrie and just pivot into him, and he gets another wide open layup. Again, generating easy baskets without having to rely on your superpowers as often as you would otherwise. And then here's the one in the second half that I thought was really cool. So once again, Lively at the top, off-ball action. We have Najee Marshall screening for Kyrie. Dinwiddie's just staying in the left corner. But watch Luka. He's got a top block here. So again, we talk about this a lot. Jaden McDaniels is trying to stop Luka from coming off of this top side from Lively. So he's sealing the top side. So Luka is now pushing Jaden as high as he can to try to create a passing angle for Lively to throw the ball in here. He does. Lively throws a perfect pass. That forces Anthony Edwards to help. Now we get our beautiful behind the back pass from Luka to Spencer Dinwiddie in the corner. Beautiful, beautiful work. Once again, Luka Doncic getting to generate a shot without having to put the ball in the full time. Here's Derek Lively doing a really nice job on Anthony Edwards on a switch. The beautiful thing with Derek Lively is his length to contest pull-up jumpers to make Ant skeptical about his ability to get the shot off, while also being able to play back far enough to contain the drive. Now he's like kind of indecisive about what he wants to do. And like even here, like he gets a little separation and he might take this shot, but Derek Lively's got enough length that he's like, I'm not sure I got enough separation. So he ends up having to give it up. Ends up being a heave from Jaden McDaniels. Really nice defense from Derek Lively. Here's an example of off-ball relocation being valuable. So offensive rebound, yet another Derek Lively offensive rebound. He's such a monster in this game. All right, so Dante DiVincenzo's guarding Quentin Grimes. He's keyed in on the ball, right? The hardest part about off-ball defense is being able to track man and ball. He thinks Quentin Grimes is at the top of the key. Still thinks Quentin Grimes is at the top of the key. What you can't see off camera is Quentin Grimes is relocating. There he goes. He's relocating, taking advantage of Dante turning his head, catches him slipping, gets a wide open look. That is why off-ball player movement is so valuable. All right, moving on to the Warriors. This was just a ridiculous example of Gary Payton's ability to dig down on ball handlers. Watch Gary Payton digging down as Brandon Ingram and I want to say Jordan Hawkins make drives to the rim. So dig, boom. See how he gets down on CJ, recovers. Now Jordan Hawkins is going to drive. Watch how fast Gary Payton shoots down and gets the jump ball. Boom. It's so much speed to cover ground. I thought this was just a beautiful example of split cut action that the Warriors ran. So we're going to go to Draymond in the post. Okay. Watch this play develop. So we're going to go to Draymond in the post. Then the classic Warriors split cut is the guy who makes the post entry just screens away for the guy at the top of the key, right? Goes to screen. This time Kuminga actually screens. Buddy Hield gets a little bit of an angle on this slip that draws Zion Williamson and help. Extra pass to Kyle Anderson forces Jordan Hawkins to rotate. Probably a bad closeout from Jordan Hawkins. You just make Kyle Anderson take that three, but Lindy Waters ends up getting a wide open three out of it. Beautiful, beautiful split cut basketball. I thought this was a really, really pretty set that they ran to get Brandon Podziemski a wide open layup. So Draymond sets a wide screen to get Lindy Waters the catch. We're going on another split cut, right? But this is a variation of split cut, right? So we're making the post entry to Draymond, but on the post entry, Trace Jackson Davis back screens for Brandon Podziemski, gets a wide open layup. Really pretty stuff. This is the concept of turning a good look into a great look. So we're playing basketball here, going back to the post, same split cut action, right? This time CJ McCollum does a better job of navigating the screen, so it's not open. It flows into the next phase of the split action, which is Trace screening for Lindy. Lindy's got a decent look here, but Zion throws a closeout. Zion's a freaky athlete. So Lindy's like, don't really like the look. So let's see if we can get a better one. There's 13 seconds on the shot clock. Swing to Moody. Moody's got a look. Don't really like the look. If I throw it to Pods there, he's going up against the center underneath the basket. I don't think this is the best option. Let's see if we can't drive this closeout. He drives right. Pods relocates. Now you get a wide open three. So again, the diligence to turn down a couple of okay shots ends up getting you a great shot that goes in. I've talked a lot about beating ball pressure with a swing pass, then making the swing pass guy hit the roll man. This I thought was a great example of that. So like, you can see that dynamic taking place. Lindy Waters is our ball handler. Trace Jackson Davis is going to go set a ball screen. The Pels are going to put two on the ball. Okay. When the Pels put two on the ball, the roll man gets open. But the problem is when the roll man's open, there's ball pressure here. So that becomes a difficult pass to make. Podziemski, as a swing pass man, is not being ball pressured. He can make the pass. He hits Trace. Now we have our weak side 2-on-1. Moody cuts, get an easy layup. Beautiful basketball from the Golden State Warriors. And then this was that crazy Jonathan Kuminga block to lob sequence. Blocks CJ McCollum at the rim, gets the rebound, runs it down, patiently pass fake, boom, dunk. I know you Warriors fans really enjoyed that one last night. That was a really, really fun game to watch. All right, guys, that is all I have for today. As always, I sincerely appreciate the show. Cleveland Cavaliers fans, I was going to do Cavs today, but then the Cavs play the Lakers tonight, and I'm obviously going to watch that, so figured might as well move it to tomorrow. So we're going to do a deep dive on the Cavs game. We'll be hitting Knicks, Cavs, as well as just like the season at large in a lot of detail in tomorrow's show. As always, I sincerely appreciate you guys for supporting the show. I will see you guys tomorrow.